I am no longer invested in Tua Tagovailoa.
Oh, right off the top.
And you want to know why? It's because if he doesn't care, then I can't care. And I'm not talking about touchdown passes to Tyreek Hill. I'm not talking about touchdown passes to Jalen Waddle. I'm talking about his health. And I think in last night's game, for the Rams who are trying to stay in the thick of it in the NFC West, and the Dolphins, as crazy as it sounds entering last night, were a 2-win team, still kind of had some playoff hopes. The playoff picture in the AFC is so awful, they're not necessarily out of it. I think the biggest draw last night was, were we going to see a train wreck or a car crash with Tua Tagovailoa? And he was almost the cause of it. I am done. I can't worry about Tua's health if Tua's not going to worry about Tua's health.
Well, I'll say this, and first of all, I love you coming in hot off the top here. I think it's okay for you to say if he's not worried, I'm not worried. I don't think it's that he's not worried. I think it's that he has played football probably since he was 4, 5, 6 years old. It's all he knows. He's clearly very good at it. He clearly, obviously, it goes without saying, has a passion for it, and he's not ready to give it up. And I go back to the days following the most recent concussion and all the discourse, and I turned on some of the shows, and there were some people that were very adamant he needs to retire. There were former players saying if he wants to play, then he should play. So I don't think it's that he doesn't care. But I also think at this point, if anything happens, he knows it's like anything else. It's like smoking a cigarette. It's like eating fast food, drinking. You know the consequences of your behaviors, and it's up to you whether you deem, the risk isn't the right word, but the decision to make any decision, the risk, the consequences, and if you're willing to do it, then you're willing to do it. What I would also counter by saying is this. I do give him a little bit of credit from this perspective of, and I didn't doubt that he would, but if you're going to do it, you got to go all in. And you mentioned the idea of like, well, he's flying around and running for first downs and jumping, diving for the first down marker head first. It's like, but if he wasn't, then we would be probably even more critical saying, dude, if you're going to do this, you got to do it 100%. So I don't love it. Like everybody else, I know I speak for America when I say that we're all praying nothing major happens on the field. I wouldn't say he doesn't care, but I think your point about the idea of you shouldn't, like, I agree that you shouldn't care, you shouldn't feel guilty watching, but I don't think that means that Tua doesn't care.
It's funny because I'm in a group text with Jason Stewart. Iowa Sam is in a group text with us. There's also one with me and Jason and John Ramos.
Just not including me. That's
John.
That's cool.
There's a variety. I'm sure that you're in a bunch that I'm not in. Monty's probably in all of them, just to be honest. But with Jason last night, as soon as Tua threw that interception, I didn't realize it at first, but Jason's like, what the heck is Tua doing?
Sure.
And so I went back and I rewound it, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. I was in the other room when the interception happened, and it's Tua trying to make a tackle going head first on an interception. And I get the running for a first down and scrambling, but the way that he got hurt in week 2 was he didn't know how to slide, didn't know when to slide, didn't know when to give himself up. And you can't sit there and just throw, everything out and say, I'm going to be Tua, because the Dolphins invested in you. And that is a perfect opportunity for Tua. I'm not saying that he just had to stand there and not make a tackle. What you don't do is go head first and trying to possibly tackle a guy at his knees where you get a knee to the helmet, or it even looked like he kind of got a knee to his neck that could cause another concussion. That whole play there to me was what is representative of, I understand what you're saying with first downs and slides and all that. That play doesn't have to happen. He doesn't have to throw himself in front of a defender after an interception. I think there's a natural instinct of quarterbacks to do that, to try to make up for the wrong that they just did. But that's what he has to correct. And if he can't correct it, then I can't care about it. And honestly, as I laid out where the Dolphins were in the playoff picture and where the Rams were in the NFC, there was very few reasons for me to watch that game aside from, let me see how Tua is doing. And then the inevitable comes in of, all right, is Tua going to get knocked out again? And I can't care anymore, because I can't sit there and watch every drop back and if he gets sacked to see what his head is going to do and see what's coming from it. If he's not going to worry about it, I'm not going to worry about it.
Well, it's interesting. A couple things. One, I think there's probably a pretty compelling argument that no quarterback, or at least not, I'm not talking about Tyson Badgett here, Cooper Rush, but I mean the marquee quarterbacks, the Jaden Daniels, the Joe Burrows, the Lamar Jacksons, the Tuas, they shouldn't be trying to make a tackle on that play anyway. But what I would also say is I do agree, and I noticed this the first game back, was that, and I think they played Arizona that game, and it was a close game, whatever, obviously last week with Buffalo. But I just bring it up because I think it was the Arizona game, but it might have been Buffalo last week, where there was a play where it was kind of like a called QB draw where he dropped back and then he ran, and you could even almost hear whoever was on the call. It could have been Jim Nantz, it could have been whoever, like, oh, here we go. And it's like there was even an unease in the booth of like, oh, are we going to see something that we don't want to see here? So I hate to say it, but listen, until further notice, and I think for the foreseeable future, I think that is going to be a part of every game that Miami plays, every physical play, whether it's a tackle after an interception, whether it's a run for a first down, whether it's a hard hit, whether he's getting sacked, whether he's whatever. And maybe we get to a point like we did last year where a long enough time, kind of goes by where nothing happens, where we kind of forget about it. But I still think for the foreseeable future, we're in that, hoping that we don't see the worst, but almost expecting it anytime there's a physical play involving Tua.
I actually think it's the number one draw of the Dolphins, as sick as that sounds. It sounds so morbid and sick, but it's true. You're wondering what is going to happen. Here's what Tua had to say after the game about his attempted tackle following that interception.
I feel good. Everything's good. I went up to that dude that intercepted me and asked him, like, bro, you couldn't just, like, ran out of bounds or, like, cut back? It's like, you seen me and I seen you. Like, you wanted to just run me over. He told me after the game, he's like, there's no room. There was nowhere else to go. So, he got to do what he got to do to help his team win games, and I wasn't planning on using my head to go hit it.
I guess his leg kind of did kick, like, the side of your head. You never felt any ill effects from it?
Nah, I didn't feel any of that. That was pretty bad tackling for him, though. That was pretty terrible.
Let me say this too, and it was a former player on one of the talk shows said, and I would give the person credit if I remember who it was, but Tua is not only putting us in a weird spot, as fans, just we're watching and we don't want to see, but we're kind of curious. You know who else he's putting in a really bad spot? Mike McDaniel. Like, think about, does Mike McDaniel have to alter? I mean, you always, as a coach, you always want to protect your quarterback. We get that, but it's like, is Mike McDaniel doing something different? Is there, and I don't know, I'm not a scheme expert, whatever, but you do wonder those short yardages where maybe a year ago would have been the tush push, the rollouts where there's the option for him to run, whatever the scenario is. It is kind of a weird deal for Mike McDaniel as well. Again, I understand a play caller always has to protect the quarterback, but it is obviously heightened with Tua.
But you know this as well, and I completely understand what you're saying with Mike McDaniel, is that Tua never was a runner.
No.
And so the problem is that even in the limited space where he could be hit. Now, I understand if you get ragdoll on a sack, that could happen.
Everybody's control, yeah.
But it was the slide or the lack thereof in week 2 against Buffalo that got him in that situation. There have been other cases where he has put his body at harm, and for some reason it's just not registering anymore. And so here he's talking about a scenario on an interception. He's going to throw interceptions. That is a given. Every quarterback, no matter how great you are is going to throw an interception, so you know what's going to happen. You have to be smart on how you respond to that. And I think Mike McDaniel would trade having Tua the rest of the regular season as opposed to him making a tackle on that interception.
No doubt.
And that's where Tua needs to be smart about it. And he's not being smart about it, or he doesn't care about it, so I can't care about it. The most damning thing with Tua right now, and I truly mean this, he lines up in the backfield with Devon Achane, and Achane has the Guardian cap on and Tua doesn't.
Sure.
And Tua says that his helmet is set, specific for concussions. I would wear a thing the size of the moon on my helmet if I went through Tua went through. But there's the optics of it. Here you have a running back who's dealt with similar stuff that it appears is taking the utmost of precautions for his health, and Tua is not. And that is an optics issue as well. And that's where I just have the problem with it.